lesson number 7, competitive advantage. I would have preferred to give you 4 methods, but in the interest of time, I'll discuss with you just 2. Because every time you get into any business, as long as there is money in that business, people will come into that business. If they don't come there, then there is no money. So long as there is money, there will be competition. And if you come up with new strategies, competition will react. There is no final battle. There is no resting place. It is a luta continua. Produce and compete, all perish. Let me suggest 2 ways, very non-conventional, of dealing, or rather, rendering competition irrelevant. The first one, I'll call it blue sky strategy. There is a place beyond the clouds where the sky is always clear. The sky is always blue. A point beyond which only the eagle can fly. Last month, with a team of 10 members from Sense 101 Life Club, we climbed Mount Kenya. And after a certain altitude, when we left Shipton Camp, 4,200 meters above the sea level, there was no life, plant or animal. It was just a slippery rock. And by the time we were reaching Lenana Peak, the only life we could see were a few eagles hovering. Even the clouds were beneath us, and the glaciers were beneath us. There is a point beyond which competition ceases, and giants meet at the conceptual level. You see, small mites fight over inheritance. Small mites fight over loot collected from corruption because of scarcity mentality. If you go to Silicon Valley, I've been there a couple of times, they don't fight over the things we fight for in Kenya. They fight over ideas, because the toughest battles happen at the conceptual realms. The toughest fights are conceptual fights. The fight over ideas. There's a point so high that competition ceases, because others cannot bear the temperature and the pressure and the oxygen level. Strategic partnerships are formed by like-minded giants. Beneath the clouds are crowds. The competition is live and rife. Endemic competition. Cutthroat competition. Copycatting is the hallmark of identity. Similarity is their hallmark. Everyone looks like everyone else. The area is gray, dark, gloomy. And I want to invite you to a higher ground. An area that is clear. You know, when you're flying distant places and you begin to cruise at 40,000 feet above the sea level. Remember, the Everest is only 29,000. At that point, the planes are able to get a maximum speed, sometimes between 900 and 1,000 kilometers per hour. And at that maximum speed, although there are over 1,000 planes in the air at any given moment on this planet, you never notice any other plane. You never notice any other plane, because the space is adequate. And that's the space I want to invite you. Identify your blue line. What's that? It is not how superior you are from the rest, but how different you are. If 4 of us were in the jungle and were confronted by a wild, ferocious tiger, if everybody's strategy was running away from the tiger, then I don't need to be the fastest amongst us to reach home alive. I only need to outrun the slowest amongst us. Well, I may arrive home alive, but that doesn't mean I can compete with Usain Bolt, because I was just competing with very slow people perhaps. But if I'm the slowest amongst us, then if I have to reach home safe, I've got to get a different strategy to deal with the tiger. And here's the deal, precious friends, brothers and sisters. In real life, in business, the dangers may not be fatal like in the jungle, But failure to get on profitability fast enough may have devastating emotional consequences. That's why turnaround strategies need to be thought on the feet and implemented at heartbeat. What's your blue line? If somebody asks you in a language, your differential factor, how different you are from the rest. Let me give you the second strategy of rendering competition irrelevant. Number 2, identify and run your race. In the 1968 Summer Olympics, John Stephen Awari was scheduled for marathon in Mexico. On the 19th minute, he hurt his leg so badly that he couldn't run. He dragged his feet to the finishing line. He crossed the finishing line 1 hour and a few minutes after the stadium lights had gone out, and the medals were already awarded. The reporters went over to him and asked him, "Sir, what kept you running after the stadium lights had gone out and the medals were already awarded?" John Stephen Awari looked at the journalist eyeball to eyeball and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen and ladies, when my nation, the country of Tanzania, sent me to this country thousands of miles away, they never sent me here to compare myself with the other athletes. They sent me here to finish the race." There's a race set before you. You will never be awarded for running someone else's race. Let me ask you, and I want you to be honest with me. How many in this live audience can confess? Just be very frank. Just be very frank right now. One day you are driving, say, to Nakuru. Just after Keno, there was another guy who passed you, Kimatharao. You got so upset and stepped on that accelerator to prove you have a point. Graciously, you are able to overcome this dude. But after that short celebration, the guy turned on the left to Maimahiu. He wasn't going to Nakuru after all. How many are guilty? Quite some hands. You know, in the race of life, we get into the highway of life at different times. We travel at different paces. We exit at different times. The idea is to finish your race and finish strong and finish faithfully. The good news is this: you are being waited for at the finishing line. Don't give up. There's a crown ahead if you stay the course. But you will only be rewarded for the race you are enrolled. The Apostle Paul talks about the race. I have finished my race. To quote him verbatim, 2 Timothy 4:7, I have fought the good fight. I have kept the faith. I have finished the race. Elsewhere he says, I have run the race with perseverance. There's a race set before me. That's the race I want to run. Is this practical? Let me tell you my own case. I never, ever check what any other speaker in Africa charges. I'll even go beyond that. And I hope you don't take this to be rude or arrogant. I never even check how they train. Why do you say that, Dr. Kenyanjui? Because I decided to compete against my previous self. I decided I will never utter one single word in public that is idle. I never, ever utter one idle word in public. I believe with all my heart, every single sentence I'm telling you has the power to transform you. And I decided I will do for the audience of one, the one who called me. And I decided to be faithful with that. What is the benefit of that? I've never done direct marketing for what I do since the year 2008. Let me tell you this. There is a place where you will never compete with anyone. They can copy you, they can look like you, but they will never become you. Thank you very much. There is something God designed for you alone, and when you run away from it, there is something you're denying the world. There is a need that needs you. There is a responsibility that no one else can replace you. There is a place where you are irreplaceable. Identify that place. And if you haven't identified, I plead with you, my precious friends. I do this. This is the reason I take people for the cruises. Last year I took people to Egypt. 3 days I was just teaching them to connect with their purpose. In 3 weeks' time, I'm taking guys from Singapore to Malaysia, to Thailand, in the high seas, to connect with their purpose. In August, I'll do the same. from Southampton in the UK all the way to Italy and back. I know you are late for those cruises, but you can plan to join us next year, April. If you can't manage it, you can't afford, there is therefore now no condemnation. This is what you can do. Come on 13th of October. We have a crash program for you here, local, which I call 12 hours of transformation, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Lydian Towers. And I'll help you connect your God-given talents. You connect the dots between your God-given talents, the resources at your disposal, the skills you've acquired, and your deepest passions and interests. There's nothing more dangerous than walking through this life never knowing the reason for your existence. What if you reach the end of the road and realize it was all wrong? You never lived. Your God-given assignment was perishing within you. Did you know God has no afterthoughts? Everything that you need for your life is already in you. God declares the end from the beginning. There's nothing you'll ever need that he has not given you. God doesn't wait for you to recollect who you are and correct yourself and then release your gifts. Anything you ever need for your purpose is trapped within you. Lesson number 8. Can we go to number 8? Team execution.